Hey everyone, DRRaid Plays here, and we have 1.5 days left on the timer to get our emblems for the Eclipse version of the Monolith Fall raid. And so with that time running out, I want to make sure that I update any strategies that we picked up during the speedrun competition for you guys. That way anybody that watches this video can take those into their final runs to try to get their emblem before the time runs out, try to get those limited time rewards, and just try to get your first clear if you're still trying to clear Eclipse and you haven't gone in. Now, if you're looking for the base strategies, this is going to be a supplement to my original video, so please check out my original video that's going to be a little more detailed on each of the encounters and how they operate in the Eclipse version. This is just going to be going over like a slightly higher level of things that we found during the encounters that you can tweak and change that can help your teams that were struggling clear these encounters better. So let's start with the first encounter, break-in. Now with the encounter break-in, our order normally was clearing the bruisers in the center, and then we would go to the left and clear enemies until the impact Shinka spawned, and then clear the impact Shinka, and then clear the key bearer. Then that would start the spawn of the other enemies, namely the servitor, and clearing the servitor of course would activate the plates. What we found is through some of the speedrun strategies and watching other teams too, is that if you clear the sentry key captain and you leave the impact Shinka alone, the servitors will still spawn. We thought that you had to clear the captain for the servitors to spawn. So you can ignore the brigand and you can ignore the captain as long as they're not doing too much damage to your team, especially now that the difficulty's been tuned down. They shouldn't really wipe your team as long as you're being careful and taking cover. And when you do that, you speed things up a little bit because you don't have to worry about wasting resources on the impact Shinka, and you can clear the impact Shinka after everything has been done. So in the order then, you would clear your bruisers, go up and clear your key bearer. Once you clear the sentry captain that has the key, you can actually take out the servitor while you're standing on the plate. So you have one person that's like standing on the plate doing damage to the servitor, and that'll immediately start building the bridge. So that kind of speeds the encounter up and saves time in phase one getting people across. And as long as you have survivability, then you can switch like normal at every 7 or 8 stacks, and you can go back and forth that way. So that saves a little time, that shaves off time. That's what people were doing to try to get through this encounter as quickly as possible, legit. Now, one thing that I mentioned in the other video that I want to mention again in this video is that to save a super or to save some strong abilities for when you get across the bridge so that you clear that first group of enemies and they don't take out one of your fuse carriers and just slow things down a little bit. That usually happens in this mode. And so just again, save your super, and the bridge people that are crossing, you can actually leave the battery on the ground for about 3 or 4 seconds, and that'll make it to where you don't have to do a second pass once you get across the bridge. So let the person first carrying the battery drop it, count to 3 or 4, then pick up, and you should theoretically have enough time to get the battery in the door before your stack reaches 10 or 11, which 11 will then kill your guardian. And then you can avoid that extra transfer, or you can avoid having to have somebody come back for another transfer. Now, once you have one team across the bridge and you've had them clear their Scorch captains, you also want to coordinate with those people to shoot across from each other to make it a little easier on the Scorch people, because the person on the right can see the fuse on the left easier than the person on the left can see their own fuse on the left, if that makes sense. So the person on the right shoots the fuse on the wall on the left, and the person on the left shoots the fuse in the middle of the wall, and then that'll flip the other way. On the second team, it'll be, left shooting right and vice versa, depending on where the fuses are when you get over there. So try to shoot across from each other. And then the thing that we learned is that you don't actually have to have everybody on all plates at the same time. So we had the bottom team go over to the right plate after picking up their key and just ignoring the enemies on that side. You still have to take out your servitor though, so that the plates activate. So just make sure you take out your servitors. And then from there, that team can focus on just dealing with one side of the enemies and then keeping their plate going with the 2 people that are going to be remaining, while the other 2 people get in position to pick up the battery and go across the bridge. And then the 2 people across the bridge, they're going to go to their left plate if you're looking at the exit door, or their right plate if you're looking back down at the people on the ground. And then they're going to group up and do the same thing. They're going to take out the enemies in their area, and they're going to go back and forth, getting the bridge built on their side, alternating with the team below. So you can actually have somebody get off, get on, get off, get on both sides, keeping those 2 plates active, and the bridge will still build. So you don't have to worry about like keeping 4 plates active at a time or anything like that. And so once they've done that and the second team comes across and you know that team is clear, you can hop off your plates, dealing with your shanks. Once your shanks are kind of out of the way, you can actually help take out the Scorch Vandals while you have nothing to do. If you've cleared enemies on your side, look at your Scorch Vandal, clear the middle so that the people coming across on the bridge don't have enemies in the middle, and then hopefully that team coming across can just run in and pick up their Scorch Cannons with nothing to harass them, other than maybe like some small enemies. You want to make sure to try to take out some of the smaller like shanks that are in there at the bottom, because they can actually harass and kill somebody with a Scorch Cannon, and then those people will run in there and pick up their Scorch Cannons, shoot their batteries, and then come back outside to gather up for the outer enemies. You don't even need to worry about the inner enemies. You don't need to worry about the inside Shinkas. That'll actually spawn additional Shinkas if you take those out. So just leave those alone, come back outside, and start clearing the servitors that are going to spawn on your side with the captains and everything. Pop your supers, save your supers for those moments, and then again, help take out the Scorch Vandal for that third team to get in there and then take that out. Now, of course, if anybody drops the key, as somebody that's already up there, you can grab the key and go grab your Scorched Cannon, no problem. So it's not a big deal if somebody dies and drops a key. Just pick up the key, pick them up, and then go grab their Scorched Cannon for them and take out the fuse that they were supposed to be taking out. Lastly, when you group up to take out the final set of enemies, you want to make sure you're coordinating on the specific enemy, the large heavy enemies, whether it be the heavy Shanks, like the boss Shanks, or the Shinkas, because you want to try to make sure that you're not splitting your focus to the point where the Shinkas get their shields back. That will take up time, and that can actually push you to hit the timer if you're a little slower team and wipe, and you have the ability to set a ping. You can mark which one you are if you're not really on comms. If you are on comms, of course, you can call out left side, right side. You can say, we're going to defeat the middle Shinka first, and go from there. So that's the best recommendation I have when you're trying to clear the ads, especially the large heavy Shanks. If you clear the sides, left side, right side, left side, right side, and you do that coordinator wise, people should take less damage. You shouldn't lose people in that section, especially if you have like a good group makeup that's got a lot of defense. In this encounter, you can actually go with quite a bit of a variety. People are obviously using Gwens for the impact Shinkas. Wolf is strong. Wolf can actually also stun impact Shinkas. I'm not sure if many people know that. There's like a lot of Wolf hate going on around there, but Wolf is actually a very all-around character. He can obviously take out rapid fire Shinkas. He can do so a little bit slower than Ning Fang because his primary has the ability to shoot 3 bullets at a time, but only 33% of the time with the right perk. So if you have that perk, you can still take out rapid fire Shinkas quickly. It's just not on the level of Ning's power weapon, for example, but it's still very quick. And again, he can use his grenade launcher, especially in the super mode of the grenade launcher, to knock down shields with the Gwens on the impact Shinkas. So Wolf is actually a strong character as well to have if played properly. He's also got improved movement ability, so that'll help when carrying the battery in this encounter and the second encounter. So again, Wolf is pretty good. Of course, Ning Fei is good. He's good at popping shields. He's good at doing a lot of the things. He can actually move around the battlefield really quickly. And as long as you have your 2 impact characters, Yolder was useful on our team. We had a Yolder pop their bubble in the final phase of the encounter, and that helped us be able to group up and take out enemies coordinated like we talked about earlier as far as one of the tips. Of course, having a Tan is helpful. Tan can put down healing in the final area and keep people alive. Obviously, he can put down his super, healing super, or damage super to help cook things. And then, of course, Estella is always that fill character, so once you have your main characters for whatever Shinkas you're dealing with, you can fill with Estella's because Estella just has crazy good damage, and she's really good at cooking the larger enemies. So other than that, though, once you follow those new additional steps, that should help you iron out any of the difficulties if you may have been having in the Eclipse raid if the first guide wasn't quite enough for your team. And so hopefully this will help. And now let's move on to the Menace Above. So in the Menace Above, one of the first major changes that you're going to be looking out for is that you don't actually need to input the code on the people in the portal rooms. In the video that I made prior to, I talked about putting in the code first and then letting the people outside put in their code. But really all that does, we found out, is it activates the monitor so that the people on the outside can see the code without having to have you repeat it to them. Once you're on voice comms, that need goes away and you can skip that step basically. Now, if you're not on voice comms, of course, you can just follow the guide. Like I mentioned, put the code in, let the people on the outside see the code, and they'll put the code in their order as long as they get their order right through chat or however they want to handle that if you're not on voice comms. But I do recommend, obviously, for this encounter with the coordination level, it requires to be on some type of communication, typing or talking. You want to be on comms. Now, we decided how we would handle it is we would call the left side out first for the left team, and then the right side out second for the second team, so that we weren't talking over each other, because the comms can get a little confusing and the symbols can be somewhat similar in certain cases, especially when you don't have good symbol callouts. So that's how we did it. We would clear our rooms. The people on the inside are free then to clear their rooms because they don't have to worry about putting in their code, so they can actually focus on taking out the bruiser that does a lot of damage on contest mode, taking out the shanks that can be annoying, and then keeping an eye on their monitor. And what I would do is I would just repeat the code in my head over and over again. Or if I'm not on mic, obviously I can repeat it out loud if I really need to, if you're that person that needs to say it out loud, so that I had the code ready in my head whenever somebody called for the code from the middle. And we allowed the people in the middle to tell us when it was time to input the codes. Because since we're not inputting the codes anymore, we don't have to worry about making the call out. That was one of the changes we made that helped us with success in getting time down. We were first calling it out, and then the stress from the ads and everything was causing the people in the middle to kind of forget where they were in their position or forget the code entirely. So we just said, hey, we're not going to say anything. We're just going to clear our room and let the people in the middle say, hey, we're ready for the code. And so I'm repeating in my head the code, and then I call it out on my side, and then the person on the right side would call it out on their side, because I believe I was left side for the beginning of this. And then that's how the code reading and code inputting would go. You still want to input, 1, 2, 3, 4 in order. And so, like, let's say 1 and 3 was left and 2 and 4 is right. The people on the outside would say 1 going in, then it would be 2 going in, 3 going in, 4 going in. You would still do that same order, and everybody on the outside would coordinate. And as long as they're saying inputting 1, the person behind it, as they're saying inputting 1, will begin to hit their button inputting 2, because with that little time delay of the wheel spinning and putting in the button, by the time they get done saying inputting 2, and then the next person touches their button inputting 3 and saying that, it'll speed that up a little bit too, giving you more time and more room for error when you're doing the relay section. Now, the next major tip, which is still similar to the first video, but we had some changes, is getting everybody on the same page when it comes to callouts. We tried our best to simplify callouts because there was confusion when we were trying to just kind of describe the symbols. Those are the ones that caused major confusion. And then there was confusion as well on some of the outer symbols, since there's some repeats. We were calling, for example, the smaller inner symbol that looks like a circle the servitor, or the little circle, for example. And that was causing some confusion because we would say, little circle, big circle, and people would forget, is it the little circle or the big circle? And so we had to make some additional changes with that. And our callouts at that point, once they kind of grew a little bit, went like this. The fallen symbol that kind of has like that spider type symbol, we would call that a bug. The 4 circle symbol that had like some designs around it, we called that clover. The symbol that was the 3 circles that made up like a little U, it looks like Mickey Mouse, so we call it Mickey Mouse because that's exactly how it looks. It's got the ears and everything. And well, for the final symbol, I'll let the video speak for that.
No, because he said circle and then small circle.
Oh my god, did you guys mix up the circles?
Yeah, he did.
I fucking called it.
Just call it servitor. Call it servitor.
Just look. Everybody's gonna know what this is. Just call it a nipple.
Yeah, nipple
actually,
Right,
yeah.
nipple square.
It's silly. We'll remember it.
It's
Honestly, that's how you remember shit.
yeah.
So we had to get a new name for the inner circle, right? And yes, we called it nipple, and it worked fantastic because just like I said in the video, it's silly, it's easy to remember. Everybody's going to giggle a little bit when they hear it, and they're going to know exactly what we're talking about without any confusion between the outer circle and the inner circle. And so for the rest of the callouts, of course, we would call it outer box or square. The other circle was the outer circle, and we could just call it circle at that point because we know it's not nipple. And then diamond was, of course, diamond. And triangle, we had to call it triangle because for some reason it was like easy to zone out and confuse the diamond and the triangle because they both have peaks, right? So you're just looking at it out of the corner of your eye, and some people were hitting diamond instead of triangle and vice versa. So we would say, diamond, actual diamond, and we would say triangle, and that's how we were able to make sure that there was no callout issues going forward. That's kind of a way to iron out those kinks, and you can do that with your group however you'd like, whatever silly names. So speedrunners were using numbers in correlation to the symbols. That still leaves room to me for people to confuse, what was 2 again, what was 3 again, what was 4 again. It's really easy to see what bug looks like. Clover looks like a 4-leaf clover, and it's the only one that's like itself. Mickey Mouse is self-explanatory, and anybody can forget nipple, right? So those are the callouts that we had. If you want to use those callouts, great. If you want to make your own callouts, just make sure that you choose something that your team knows is recognizable and can do so without fail each time. Now, when it comes to group makeup, Ningfe is king in this encounter, with Gwen following second, and then followed again by Estella for damage. If you know how to use Wolf's speed boost, this can also be very helpful to the encounter, like I mentioned in the last encounter. A Wolf can actually use signature abilities, boosting the speed of the battery carrier along with him, and as long as they're close enough in their proximity to pick up those speed boosts, you guys can zoom through the doors and not have to worry about dropping the battery before the doors, which will save time and sometimes save wipes because you lose people getting too antsy and running into the electric field and dying, and then also getting stuck with the battery being separated behind them. Gwen can teleport through that field, so you kind of sometimes teleport back through and save the run. You don't have to wipe if that happens if you have a Gwen, but that's a rare situation. You have to time it just right, and you have to be just the right distance, or you end up getting hit by the lightning as you're teleporting through, and it'll still wipe your team at that point. Now, the reason why Ning will do well is his exotic melts rapid fire Shinka so quickly, and it saves you time on the outside that you need to get to the point where you're doing the calls. Like we mentioned, the outside people are the ones who are setting the pace for the calls. And now that the contest is over, his talent tree is active, so that's going to allow him to go invisible after summoning a clone, and that's going to give him time without being harassed to put in the code mid-combat, so you don't even have to worry about taking out all the enemies before you input the codes. He can just know where he's at in the position, call for the code, put his code in time. Of course, you don't want to be too far ahead of your other teammates, but that's a way to get the code in, even if you're a little behind on ad clear, and still save the run. So that's a nice little added benefit. And Umeko likely also has the same benefit. She just may not be as good at clearing the room as Ningfei would be, for example, with his chain lightning and all of his abilities. This is just a Ningfang encounter in general. Now, you don't necessarily need to have two Ningfangs, but it's nice to have one on each side. You can also have one just like roam back and forth, popping the Shinka shields really quickly, because that's his main benefit, is popping Shinka shields rather quickly. Gwen was very strong on the inside because her exotic shotgun, the Octant Riot Disperser, is arc, and there's arc shielded enemies. There's an arc shielded Fall of Brute in there that does a lot of damage on contests, and you need to make sure you take him out quickly. So with her, you could blast down his shield real fast with shotgun shots, use her Void Dance to take his health down, and then just finish him, and he was basically done. Wolf is also strong to send inside because Wolf has good survivability. He can clear out a lot of the smaller enemies using his Wolf Strike and building up his Overshield, so he's got, again, good survivability in there. And he's just overall strong. He also has an Arc Heavy that can take out the shield of the Brute. So Wolf is a good inside character if they don't have a Gwen, for example, and they want somebody to help with that side's speed. For example, you only have the one Ning, you can send Wolf on the opposite side. Now you have Ning on the left with his speed and Wolf on the right with his speed, and you should be able to get out roughly around the same time in the relay. Now also with Gwen, the Octant Riot Disperser was strong on contest mode because it was very useful to pop spread Shinka shields. So Gwen and Wolf, of course, again being the two that you would send in, Gwen can actually go into her alternate fire mode. If you stand a little bit back, you don't want to make sure you're not too close so you don't miss the spread. You'll hit all the little satellites on the spread Shinka, and that'll stun the spread Shinka, allowing your teammates, namely your Stella, to pop super and then wipe that spread Shinka before it gets a shield back. On Wolf, Wolf has a spread weapon, so Wolf can just shoot them like normal with any of his either super grenade or regular grenades, and it'll pop the spread Shinka, and then you go to town from there. Now also too, the Scorch Vandals on the inside in the final room are arc shielded, so overall it's a nice setup going in with somebody with an arc heavy. And again, that Gwen shotgun and the Wolf Heavy are going to be good at clearing those shields and allowing you to get in and start getting damage on those priority enemies. Now, a few Stellas on the outside filled up the rest of the team for us for this encounter. Her super is strong. She does a lot of damage with both of her weapons, whether you're doing the Fury Exotic Pulse or you're doing a regular Pulse with Heir Apparent. She just does a bunch of damage in general. Her tier 3 summons are really strong. They're good at ad clear. You usually have your super up for that final room like we talked about to clear out the spread Shinka. And if you get the spread Shinka down in time and you get the Captain's Shield down in time, the Vandal, the Scorch Vandal, the Dragon will still be there and it'll get a good chunk of damage in on the Scorch Vandal too before it disappears. And then once you have the Scorch Cannon, another added benefit of the speed run was finding out that you can shoot the center shield blocking the door right in between where the two fuses are, and the explosion from the Scorch Cannon will actually take out both fuses in one shot. I know it's only like one shot difference, but it's a few seconds difference, and it can make a difference for some teams on the wipe because, again, you're on a timer. Regardless of whether you were speed running this or not, you still have so many minutes to get out and get the batteries deposited, and any little time saved will make the difference in some people's clear. So it's good to try to take all the shortcuts that you can as long as they're still available. Now, speaking of shortcuts, the next thing you want to be aware of is your movement speed. So one of the things that separated a lot of the teams, and I knew that there was some type of cheese that was out there, some type of movement tech that was out there that was allowing these really fast teams to clear this encounter in like almost an impossible time. Well, what it ended up being was, and our team used it somewhat too, just not to the greatest effect as some of these other teams, is the battery can actually increase your momentum. So if you're running and you're doing the attack button, you're going to do a slam with the battery. What you'll find is that if you slam repeatedly over and over and over again, the battery will build up your momentum to kind of a speed, like a max speed. And if you have characters that have momentum capabilities like Wolf and Ning, those characters will fly forward really fast, especially Ning. Ning can basically fly halfway across the room. Once he exits the teleporter, if he's the one that picks up the battery, he can basically jump, slam, and end up with his speed boost, like almost right in front of the battery deposit in one go. And that saves like so much time on that side. and then he can go and do the same thing and grab the other person's battery, jump slam as soon as they come out the portal from the other team. You don't have to grab your own team's battery. If he doesn't have any stacks, he can go and grab that other battery, boom, jump slam and fly, and knock like 10 seconds off just right there alone. And that's strong whenever every second mattered. Like 20 seconds separated 50 teams in the final standings, even with the duplicates. So that's a strong thing to consider, is that if you're running slow and you're hitting the timer, make sure that the people carrying the battery are slamming the battery down over and over and over again in the relay section, so that way you can get to the door quicker, and you could even maybe make it through the door without having to do a transition. To be safe, what we were doing is we were dropping the battery before the gates, before the force fields that would kill you when you walk through them, grabbing the battery and then going through safely. But if you're quick, you can actually get everybody through really fast and then drop the battery just on the other side of those force fields, and that saves a lot of time because you don't have to worry about a pickup happening after that. And then of course you have 3 or 4 seconds to pick the battery up, so that clears that next battery carrier up to take out some of the ads, some of the dangerous ads on the other side, and then come back and pick up their battery and get back into the fight. Now, speaking of staying in the fight, another thing that we found out is that with the battery's ability and attacking, if you have good survivability, you can actually still stay involved in clearing enemies. For example, the larger enemies, like in the final room with the Shinka and with the Scorch Captain, once you stun the spread Shinka, you can get in there and just slam the spread Shinka as many times as you can to help get him to where he's finishable, and then you can move on with that same battery and you can start slamming up against the Scorch Vandal. And as long as you have good survivability, you don't die with the battery, then you can drop the battery right in the pile of enemies where everybody else is already standing, and the next person in line can pick it up and keep slamming and keep the damage on. And that just adds a little bit more efficiency to your time by getting in some damage that you otherwise wouldn't be getting because you'd just be hiding with the battery behind one of the 4 half walls. Now, if you're struggling, or if you're a character that struggles to stay alive, you can still hide behind the little half wall when you come in the room, or you can hide behind one of the canisters on the left and right side of the room, depending on which vandal you're clearing, and that's fine. But if you can get in there in the mix and you can start slamming the battery down on these enemies and getting in there aggressively, that'll save your team a lot of time. So in this encounter, with good team composition, coordination on the symbol order, good strategy during the relay portion, you'll pretty much breeze through this one, I think, with the new strats, as long as your team is able to take all this advice in and use it appropriately. Again, should be an easy clear for you guys. Let's move on to Issakis Tabernacle. Now, for the most part, the strategy has remained the same during the speedruns for this. If they were doing it legit, what they were doing still was probably sending one person in and having that person clear, and then try to get a good time that way. What we found is then people were then getting used to that, doing the 2 people strat. When they really optimized it, got that clear really done the fast way, and then they had another strategy, which I'll go over, which they were using to try to get the best times, which worked. But it is what it is. Again, some of these cheeses that was going on during the speed strat, that's just how it is when you're talking speed runs. Cheeses are going to come out the woodwork. Now, one thing that changed for us was a need to focus on enemy order in priority, because if we didn't, then that would cause us to have wipes, because we were losing people, and losing people early meant we were getting delayed and meant a longer time, so we would have to start over. So as soon as the enemies come out the door, you're going to want to clear those enemies before they even really hit the ground. Then you're going to take out your first sniper Shinka. Once you take out your sniper Shinka, then you're going to want to make sure to keep enough people around on your side to take out the brute, because that brute will sneak around, and there's a set of them, and they'll sneak around and they'll do damage to you in the worst possible time during waves, when the boss is focusing you, for example, if you're trying to cross, just killing people unnecessarily. So all you have to do is take a few seconds, take out that brute shields, knock that brute down. It's just a captain running around with swords, so you know what I'm talking about. And then from there, you can move on to the other Shinka, clear that other Shinka, and then the boss will be landing in front of you, and the fuse is coming up, and then you're going to go through dealing with the boss with his 3 waves in the newer version. Another thing that I found for the teams that had good places was that during the waves, there were cheese spots that were discovered by the top teams, which allowed them to stand and fire easier and not have to even worry about jumping the waves. So that gets them more damage on enemies uninterrupted, and they could focus better on priority enemies like servitors, for example, so that the enemies aren't shielded and they go down quicker. So for those cheese spots, you can stand up on the platforms where the enemies spawn. There's one up and to the right, and there's usually one to the left of each of the sides of the boss, as long as you get up there. And if you can run and stand on top of the fuses as they lift up, that'll help you get up to those high areas. You can even remain on top of the fuses next to the boss. The boss won't damage you up there, and then you can have a good vantage point looking down with your ranged characters, and they'll be able to do heavy damage while just standing over the waves and not even having to worry about the waves. You just negate the waves entirely. So the fact that there's 3 waves doesn't even matter. Just make sure you're in position, you're in a cheese spot, and you can fire away. Now, what we did for our team to prioritize the enemies is we had our Emeko marked with the Shuriken, the closest Scorch Cannon Vandal, and then we would focus him first before moving on to the farther one. And then we had our people that were designated to pick up the cannons, pick up their cannons, and try to get the fuses destroyed before the boss ends his first wave. So we only have to deal with the one wave since we were doing it without the cheese spots. We weren't standing up there on the top. And you can also pop supers on your first set of Vandals that spawn with that very first set of fuses. And you can clear those Vandals very quickly and get your super back in time for boss damage, but you have to do it early. You have to do it roughly right when the servitors are getting ready to protect their enemies. And then if you pop your supers then, that'll clear the servitors and catch the Vandals as they're coming in. And then at that point, you can get to your cheese spots and clear the rest of the enemies, so on and so forth. If you're in a situation where you are not able to use your super from the cheese spot, like Estella, for example, can just get on the cheese spot and drop her dragon down and then just go ham on everything. So depending on who you are. Now, the group makeup update is we were using one Gwen for the impact Shinka when we were actually going inside. We were using one Omeko for debuffs and one Tan for well, and then the rest Phil was Estella. You can also run 4 Estella with one Omeko and a Tan, or 5 Estella and one Omeko, and in those cases you just ignore the impact Shinka and you just guess at the parts until you get lucky. So that's the other cheese that I was mentioning when it comes to the speed strat. All they were doing was just ignoring the Shinkas entirely, not even sending anybody inside, and just guessing both claws or like 2 particular parts. And we had like a really funny moment in our run where we were remembering from our prior runs when we were doing it legit that it was the cannon that would spawn most of the time and then one of the back spots. And we were like all arguing about, oh, we're just going to do the 2 claws. And we were like, but we don't like left claw or we don't like right claw. And we kept like changing the claws around. I kept bringing up, me personally, kept bringing up the back. And we started trying to shoot the back. And sure enough, more often than not, like at least a third of the time, it was the back was the correct guess. And so we started sticking with the back. And then we ended up going back to shooting one of the butt sides. And when we did that, that was the time in like 2 hours of us not getting a damage phase. We finally got a damage phase and we finally got the 1 phase and got the clear in a good time. And so like there's like a hilarious reaction that we had whenever that happened about like, you know, being a gambler. We were having like this philosophical conversation. It wasn't necessarily like as much of an argument as more of like a delirious conversation about probabilities and like not changing the strat, because theoretically you're going to want to pick the same 2 parts and then use those same 2 parts over and over again until you get the right parts. You don't want to keep switching parts because then you add time onto your probability of getting into a damage phase when you're doing this. And it's just like the lottery. Like you either do the quick pick, you go completely random, or you keep playing the same numbers again and hope you hit, because eventually the numbers that you picked one day possibly in your lifetime might drop, right? Might fall and you might win the lottery. And so we were trying to decide whether we're going to go with that or go with the gambler way. And when we went with the gambler way and we changed it, you know, we actually got it done. And we were in Discord just cracking up about how the fact that the gambler way worked. And it was just hilarious. Just that whole scenario, like kind of going crazy during that raid race was just enjoyable and hilarious at the same time.
Cannon, everybody.
Yep. Cannon,
Left butt
back
cheek,
left.
left butt cheek, left butt cheek.
Oh!
Told you.
Holy shit! Revive!
Run,
Revive!
run,
Revive!
run,
Revive!
run,
Revive!
run,
I got him! 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 I got him!
Yeah, we got 5 stands. We're good. We're good.
All right, you ready?
By the way,
Super!
Come on!
Did we do it? Did we just do this?
We did it. Yes.
And it was the butt cheek in the cannon. You never mess with the gambler.
Oh,
You
my
never mess with the
God.
gambler.
Oh my God.
Not to take all the credit, but I did make that last call. Just saying.
Because you were converted. Because you were converted.
We converted!
What's the time? What's the time? What's the time?
There was unity.
What's the time?
There was unity.
Alright.
This is
Okay,
going in the
guys,
video.
guys, hang on.
So just keep in mind that if you do decide to do the strat, your sanity will definitely reduce, and it may take a long time until you actually get the parts to get to the point of doing a 1 phase, and you have to 1 phase at that point. You can't mess it up. 3 or 4 runs into trying, we actually got lucky really early, and we were like 100 damage away from killing the boss. We were like the sliver. Like it was basically like the Desert Perpetual final boss. If anybody watched the original raid race on that, how close it was, how much boss health it had, that we failed. And then 2 hours later, we finally got our shot and we did it then. Now, if you're trying to get the 1 phase, or if you're just trying to maximize damage in general, during the damage phase, Omeko is going to open up with a super for the debuff. They're going to empty their heavy until the debuff drops off, and they're going to reapply with 3 Shuriken, going back into emptying their heavy. and then from there alternating with whatever they have. Estella is going to start with sending out a tier 3 summon just prior to the eye opening up for the boss's damage, and then they're going to drop their dragon right when the eye opens, and then throw out the corruption. And then as soon as that happens, you're going to bring out your heavy LMG and start doing damage. In order, you're going to use either the Air Parent or the BVD with auto loading, or Vorpal and Syncopation. That combination is strong. Or if you have the Scorched Earth with Fraternity and Clepsydra, those do really good damage on this boss. Tan, of course, will drop a damage well. If Tan's in your group, he's going to go through a cycle of emptying heavy while keeping up the phosphorus buff. And as long as you all do that, pretty well, not necessarily flawlessly, but pretty well, you're going to get the one phase. As far as reloads go, if you're using Gallows or using an LMG in general, and you're reloading a heavy weapon, you want to watch your ammo so that as soon as your ammo refills, you're going to sprint forward slightly. Not too much because you don't want to block your teammates' shots, but just a very slight forward sprint will reload cancel and allow you to begin firing again. And that little half-second reload will make a difference, because like we said, our very first time we were about to defeat the boss, we only had like 100 damage left, and had we got a good reload in, or had we got a better start on some of the Estella damage, we would have absolutely cleared him right away, and we would have had more time to work on the other encounters and got a better time for our speedrun competition. Now, if you're doing it normal, you do have to defeat the boss in 2 damage phases, so do your best to streamline your damage rotation each time. That way you get a chance to help your team clear the final encounter and claim your limited time emblem. The more work you put in on your damage rotation, the less work somebody else has to do on their damage rotation, so you give yourself more leeway as a team by streamlining yourself first. Now, we also have new rewards to claim too, so before the end of this event, you want to make sure you go into the event and grab those rewards for clearing 100,000, 300,000, 500,000. I forget what the tiers are, but those are going to be the tiers that you're going to want to collect. And it also dawned on me the other day too, when a subscriber chatted me and let me know that they were a subscriber and they saw my videos, that you guys can actually make use of my built-up Wolf, Gwen, Estella, Ameko, and Ning for your legendary campaigns using the character borrowing feature, which is really cool. Like, it's cool that you can actually see your other characters from your friends, and then you can take them in to one. You can only select one of your legendary campaigns that you may not have a built-up character for, and you need some of that. You can actually go into your friends list when you click the button and enable it, and you can pick between people's setups and pick the best setup for you to help you clear that encounter. So if you see me around in Haven, just send me a chat and be like, hey, I watched your videos, I'm a subscriber, and then send me a friend invite, and I'll accept your friend invite, and that way you guys can get access to my characters and help you guys clear your legendary campaign and get the higher end items that you need, because there's very desirable items in those 6-minute chests, 5-minute chests that you get from the faster clear times. And of course, with a built-up character, even if you have a character, if my character is more equipped than yours, feel free to use that character and get those clear times. Now let's wrap up the video. I hope the updated strats will help everybody get their clear and emblem, and maybe even some new exotics along the way. I hope you guys are enjoying the end game. I am actually finding this game very enjoyable. I find the raid very enjoyable, the game itself, and I'll be making a video talking about my experience overall in the raid. Is more of like a D1 fill than a D2 fill, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's very nostalgic, and it's interesting, and it's engaging in a way that I haven't had in a long time in playing Destiny 2. So I'm sticking with this game. I'm still playing Destiny 2 in the background. We're waiting for it to get fixed. Some new changes are coming down with Destiny 2 that are hopefully going to change things and get us more motivated to play. And of course, today, as this video is being recorded, the raid race is going on, and there's a bunch of teams still trying to clear the new final encounter. So there's still things going on in D2, but Destiny Rising is just one of those games that's just captured me. NetEase makes great games. Once Human was a lot of fun too. I played that for a long time as well, and so I'm glad that they got a good shot at Destiny and the Destiny universe, and so far they've knocked it out of the park. So I hope you guys again are enjoying it. Thanks very much for watching it to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next one.